Boom, here we go, man. Reunited, and it feels so good. Here I am with my good friend, Mr. Michael Szot. How are you, man?
I'll tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not writing a discussion board.
Oh, man, those days are behind you, dude.
Yeah, just studying for the exam, just like you.
How's that going?
Could be better, but
Yeah,
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 I'm probably
yeah.
just gonna do what I always do and grind at the last month.
Grinding the last month, and you still do a good job because you're a smart guy. For those of you listening, we're talking about the national counselor's examination, basically the last step to become a licensed professional counselor in each state, not only in Connecticut, but all states in the United States. Um, that exam, I've been studying for it too, dude. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of stuff that you just know that you're going to study for no reason because you're going to have to overstudy, and that's where I always run into an issue, right? Because I'm just stuck in the, oh shoot, I have to remember this theorist and I have to remember these steps. Problem is there's like 30 steps for each section in the exam. What do you think?
I'm just using some of the stuff from my previous career where understand how something works instead of memorizing things. If I
Yeah.
understand how it works, then I could ballpark myself in, and that came into play with disarming bombs.
Ooh, disarming bombs, man. I wonder what kind of career that was. Like, where do I apply to disarm bombs and just get into the stuff in society that you don't usually see? What's that career called?
Explosive ordnance disposal. It's happily behind me.
Uh, I love it, man. For those of you listening, my good friend Mike is a longtime veteran. Uh, Mike, I mean, we could start there. Your resume is, it's remarkable. And for those listening that may not know who you are, Mike Szot, you were in the military for a significant amount of time. I guess we could start with when did you join? What branch did you join? And what kind of led you to join the military?
Uh, Man, okay. Let's see. I was pretty much headed nowhere in life. I wasn't very good in school. Like a lot of kids in spec ed, I had an asymmetric way of learning things that I didn't understand. So I naturally did what most kids do, and I just compared myself to other kids. And it rendered me lacking. It's the best way to put it. I did what most bad kids do, but I was just really lost. And one day, I mean, this is pretty significant. I think it was my sophomore year. It was my junior year. I was sitting in there with all the other special operators in spec ed, and I'm just looking around, going, I don't, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I know I've been telling myself I'm going nowhere in life, but I really want to. I want to go somewhere. I want to do something, but I just don't want to do this anymore. So I told my teacher, and he said, "Okay, you know, um, let's start with something simple. Let's see if you can do your homework." I was like, "All right, word." So that's what I did. I sat down and forced myself to do algebra because, basically anytime I couldn't figure something out, I just toss it to the side, be like, it's because I'm dumb. And I sat there for 4 hours and made sure I understood what I was doing, and I did it. Next thing I know, I was watching my GPA come up, and now I'm out there with all the quote unquote normal kids after a period of time. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, the damage was done by the time. And I knew that if I went to college, my parents, they came from pretty bad places in life, and they worked their butts off for basically everything that we had. And I knew if I went to college, I wasn't I wasn't disciplined enough. So, you know, I decided, why don't I take a look at the military? And that's what I did. So junior year, I went into delayed entry, and I didn't have a particularly good ASVAB score, as you can imagine. So I qualified for what was called undesignated. It was like, basically, let's see if you can do janitor work. so, so that's what I did. And I went to a fighter squadron in Japan in 1998 when I graduated high school, or boot camp, I should say. So I went from high school straight over to boot camp. Learned how to, do push-ups and fold my undies, and get called all sorts of names. But I'm Gen X. Come at me. But but anyway, I went out to Japan, and by that time I knew what job I wanted to do. We call it rate in the Navy. They call it MOS everywhere else. And I wanted to be an aviation electronic technician. So my chief, Archie Gaines, he saw the caliber of work I was doing, and he said, I'll tell you what, I'll allow you to take the AT rating exam. If you do a good job, I'll fight for you. I was like, okay. And that's what I did. Every time I had watch, I sat down and read these things called rate training manuals, naval electronic training manuals, aviation electronic technician manuals, and I ended up pulling off, I think it was in 97. So I scored in the high end for people that even went to school for it. I didn't go to school for it. I struck it. So that's how I became rated. And then I started to have, that feeling of being dumb started to kind of dissolve. But that inferiority complex was always there. That I'll tackle later. But so now I wanted to be a pilot. And I was trying to get into NavCAD, what was left of it. And that was a program where you can go straight into it, straight into flight school. You get, commission to make you a junior officer, butter bar. Then you can go do all the Richard Gere stuff. But yeah, it was about, I can't remember if it was like 2000 or 99. I met this unicorn. So I was riding the mighty warship Kitty Hawk, aircraft carrier. And there's this guy, and he's standing there in his little sister's shorts, wearing sandals. And this guy's got like the most amazing hair I've ever seen. He's got this shirt on it that says EOD. His name was Craig Veckers.
Yeah.
And I went over to him and I was just like, excuse me, who are you guys? And he's like, oh, I'm EOD. I was like, he's like, Navy's bomb squad. What? We have that? Because this is before information age. This is before quiet professional went away because everybody's making a damn video about everything. And I was all in, and I fast forward through that. First two packages got shot down. And then I eventually got picked up and then went through, selection and assessment or whatever we're calling it this week. And came out the other end a new guy, and they handed me my broom and said, go ahead and clean the platoon space. I was like, I got this, man. I got this.
Yeah.
But no, it was good. I retired as a chief master EOD technician in 2020.
Nice.
But prior to that was when the Great Awakening occurred for me. And in 2015, I was bad. I was bad. I was basically a cliche. It's the only way I could put it. And I'm putting down a fifth every night to go to sleep, but that's cool because I'm an operator, so it's fine. I'm angry, but I don't know why I'm angry, and I just live at work because my identity is my entire job. And things started to fall apart for me so bad. In fact, I one night got so drunk I tried to take my own life, and I never acknowledged it. I was like, "Oof, man, don't drink Crown Royal. That shit'll make you commit suicide." But I still wouldn't admit what was wrong. I just couldn't do it. Because we had been conscripted to believe that, if you come forward and go get help, you're going to lose your clearance, lose your job. You're going to be 3 inches shorter. You're never going to dance again. All that bullshit. And basically what happened was I stepped down as platoon chief because I tried to take my own life, and I wouldn't tell anybody why. I couldn't in good conscience lead these men anymore. Not that I was doing a good job anyway. I was falling apart, and and then I had a pet cobra. That's what I like to call when you have a cluster B on your team. It's a pet cobra, and if you forget it's a cobra, it's going to bite you. Well, I couldn't manage that. I really couldn't. It was a nightmare. So I stepped down, and that's career suicide for us. And quite a few people want to take my pen from me over that. And I don't blame them, But I was, again, too ashamed and too afraid to tell anybody the truth. And then I went to staff deployment out to Bahrain. I call it Operation Enduring Per Diem. But, something happened out there. And what had happened was I watched a little boy drown in front of people that were just shooting a video of him drowning. And I broke. I can't explain it. I don't want to explain it. I think that was my God moment. And, I drank a little bit more after that. I took my last drink September 11, 2015. It was pretty Herculean. It was like a handle of Maker's Mark and I think a 30 rack. I can't remember. And then my good friend Christian and I talked. He was our doc. He was our corpsman. He handed me the paperwork for substance abuse rehabilitation, and I said, "How do I fill it out?" And he said, "Honestly," and I did. And then I went to SARP, which is again rehab. I qualified for the highest level, because I'm an overachiever. They're like, "You have to go to inpatient rehab," and I was like, "All right, so my career's over." So I thought. So I go there, and it saved my life. I don't know any other way to put it. It saved my life. One person in particular saved my life. Her name was Tracy. And she doesn't remember me, probably, but I'll never forget her because she was the voice of God. She was. That amazing person was more honest about who she is, what she's done, and what she's actively doing about it than big, bad me. And I'm just sitting there all angry-faced, like, I got nothing in common with these kids, I'm a combat vet, I'm this, I'm that, I'm special this, special that. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just a person. And she showed that to me, and I broke that day. And that was sometime in October. And I think that's when I really got sober. I may have taken my last drink, September 11th, and was trying to prove to everyone I'm not an alcoholic. And Tracy revealed to me that I am, and it's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. So after that, I went to the Oasis Combat PTSD Clinic, because they were like, hey, Chief, you actually have pretty severe combat PTSD. I'm like, nah, man, I'm good. They're like, remember when you weren't an alcoholic? I'm like, all right, word. So I figured, all right, now it's done. I'm going to combat crazy camp. It's over. Nope. No, not even close. They saved my life. They gave me a bare knuckle view of myself and why I was so concrete about everything. I was able to really come to terms with childhood sexual trauma, a lot of childhood stuff, and watched how over time I layered all these things over it so I wouldn't deal with it. And it saved me. And I'm sorry to report, I returned to work. I didn't lose a single anything. I lost the ability to drink and blame other people for bad decisions I made. That's what I lost. And I ended up, after this is 16, when I arrived in Newport, Rhode Island, and then that same year, a friend of mine had committed suicide, substance abuse related, and then another, and then another. And then I lost one of my dearest friends, Edward Furlani. He had lost his pin as a SEAL, and it was all because of his addiction to OxyContin, which is a whole, we can get into that some other time. But, I was just like, all these guys, they believe the same lie I did. They believe that they are their job. And nobody's doing anything. I mean, I'm not crapping on the military too much. But what they do is they'll come out and they're like, we're going to have suicide prevention training. Like, motherfucker, who are you going to have murder prevention training next? Like, that's irrational. That is not irrational. That is not rational. And you're going to have people come out and talk about the warning signs. You know what that taught me? How to hide. It showed me how to hide. So what we've never had was somebody come forward and tell the truth. Because we've all been told you don't return to work. So that's how I, not just me, but Philip Taylor and John Summers and an amazing guy named Captain Dixon put together the Guardian Spirit Initiative. And it was active duty success stories of recovery that talked active duty. And it worked. And that was probably the crowning achievement of my career, in my opinion. I believe whatever, I don't care who I trigger. I believe that I was carried by my creator through that entire hellscape that I put myself through to come out the other end to do that. I really believe that. I believe that it happened for a reason, and the reason had nothing to do with me. It was about the next person. So I was going for an MBA, because I was told that's what you should do. Like, yeah, they want operators in corporate America. I'm like, yeah, man, that's great. That's what we need. We need more high functioning personality disorders, making the world a better place. And then somebody, a friend of mine, wonderful guy, Mike Reardon, it was between him and my shrink over in Rhode Island. And they were like talking to me about being a counselor. And I was like, me? You think? I mean, I love reading psychology books and I love sitting with people. I'm a member of 12-Step Recovery and I love working with people and sponsoring them. And I was like, why not?
Those are good credentials. Yeah, good credentials to have
I was
for
like, why not?
that career.
So I retired and then, tried my best to be a human for a little while. Took a, because I retired during COVID, so the world was already insane. And, dealing with the COVIDery and like figuring out like my place in life. It took a minute to get some footing underneath me. And then 21, I got picked up for, the Heart of Sacred with you. And that's how we met. And now I'm, fortunate enough to be at a wonderful, amazing clinic, working with just probably some of the best clinicians I've ever met. And yeah, it's all for a reason, I suppose.
Why the Navy over the other branches?
Top Gun. No, I wanted to join the Marine Corps. I really did. And then my high school English teacher, Bernie Moore, I'll never forget him either. I actually got to call him when I retired and thank him for everything. I got his number by pure luck, and it was awesome just talking to him and saying thank you for believing in me. But I was telling him, like, yeah, I want to go to the Marine Corps. I saw Full Metal Jacket. That should tell you how intelligent I am. Like, nobody watches Full Metal Jacket and wants to join the Marines. There's something wrong with me, clearly. No, seriously, I'll show you my psych profile. It's pretty impressive. But no, and he said, you really want to get a technical skill. It's just, you're not always going to do the military. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I took it on board. And that's why I went to the Navy. Well, it all happened the way it was supposed to, I suppose.
Yeah.
I was on the ground with the Marines. Great guys. And despite what anybody tells you, crayons are delicious.
I'm sure some of my military friends in the Marines are gonna love that. I have I have the utmost respect for anyone that has joined
Yeah.
the service, and I think there is a sense of awareness that has to be raised. Just as you mentioned, for suicide prevention, is the number still the same? Is it how many a day now?
As far as that veteran, that arbitrary 22 day, according to SAMHSA, it's hovering around something like 26. But, the national suicide average has gone up, and that's when I, started to, like, if I may, I realized, I think it's great, people venerate veterans, but the other aspect, I see this as also a negative. And I've done this because I've worked with veterans, before I was a clinician. And they're, we're pricks. These guys, they don't know. They don't know. I'm like, listen, man, did you go to war? Yeah. Did you get a medal? Yeah. Or they don't need to fit in your world. You need to fit in theirs. Nobody owes us shit because we made it out the other end. We owe it to ourselves. It's about moving on. It's about knowing that, that is a chapter in our lives. And we survived it, and we survived it for a reason. But to
Yeah.
continue to stay in that place, and again, I'm not trying to, in any way, shape, or form, mitigate or minimize anybody's suffering. But that really needs to be said, because on a larger scale now, what I'm seeing, and maybe you're seeing it too, is an over-identification with diagnosis. It's like a sigil for that, for people. Like, well, I have this, so. And it's like, that it, like, you might as well say, do you have indigestion? It's like, yeah. Do you say you are indigestion? Like, no. Why? So why would you tell me you have, you are not PTSD? That is something that you have. And it is not your defining characteristic. You're a human being before you're anything else. You're not your past. You're not your mistakes. You're a person. So
Mike, do you think that for those veterans that may carry somewhat of a narcissistic attitude towards, I guess, their accomplishments and towards transitioning into the civilian life, is there something there that's maybe fear provoking? Entering that civilian life, do you think they just hold on to those accomplishments or their so-called status in the military, their medals they received, and all of the accomplishments they have, and the friends, and now it's time to transition into civilian time? Like, is there something there that's maybe fear-provoking, or what do you think you can say as far as your experiences go for yourself?
I can talk about what I've observed. When I joined the military in the 90s, we really had a different mentality. It was, this me first mentality wasn't there. It really wasn't. And if it was to a small degree, because the non-commissioned officers, the NCOs, would, if you were not humble, they would humiliate you. And it was about recognizing your place. You're a part of. And that's an important distinction. As time progressed, they kind of started making this move up or move out mentality, which I think was detrimental, because the wrong people will get promoted. And when you start making criteria, these checklists for promotion, well, here's the thing about, people that aren't hindered by a silly thing like a conscience. They tend to do pretty well there. But the proof is in, the cavitation on their way up. When they're on their way up, there's this cavitation, and they toxify the environment. They do. And they're bottle rockets. They fly all the way up the top, and that's the end of it. We were seeing a lot of that, and it was getting bad. It was getting bad. About 2008 to roughly 12, we were watching. People call it toxic leadership, but my good friend Ken Falk explained there's no such thing as toxic leadership. You either have leadership or you don't. So, we were watching some really me first mentality stuff going on there, and it changed our culture, like, fundamentally. And then the next thing you know, because like operators weren't dicks. They weren't chest beaters. They didn't have to go out and tell you how cool they were. They were like just like regular dudes. And I really appreciated that about them. They didn't have some like Bruce Wayne like origin story or any of this bullshit. They were just regular looking dude. Like, you couldn't pick them out in a lineup. And I think, a lot of the fanfare from the war and then social media, the scourge of our society, really started to foster some unrealistic kind of expectations of that. And when I became an instructor, I started to see it more and more. We stopped pulling from NCOs because they did a reorg. That was out of our hands. But you would watch the human qualitative factor dropping. Like, yeah, they can perform, but that character, which is necessary. One of my favorite examples to use is the Medal of Honor recipients from Black Hawk Down, Gary Gordon and Randy Stuckart. Those guys didn't high-five each other and say, we're going to get Medals of Honor for this. They just weren't going to leave Mike Durant there. And they knew that they were going to die. They were pretty sure that their chances were slim, but they didn't care. They were like, put us down. And, General Garrison did something that I couldn't see in the modern era at all, is he gave them the decision. He gave them the latitude to make that call. General Garrison wasn't worried about putting on another star. He wasn't worried about appeasing anyone. He said, if you guys are willing to do this, then do it. And they did. And they died. But Mike Durant lived. Sacrifice. And when, warrior is a term also thrown around an awful lot, and it's been polluted. A warrior is a servant. It's not a celebrity. You put something above self that you will suffer for, that you will work for, and you don't have to be in the military to be a warrior. That you won't sacrifice your own integrity for that thing, because you will tarnish that thing. And I watched that fade away. Not terribly.
Yeah.
There's still very good people, and there are. But when you foster that type of environment and that mentality, it's not good. And it's dangerous for people that need help. It's dangerous. Because, the whole idea is you got this hot rod, and it's performed pretty well, but now it's got a check engine light on, and it's not performing totally to the level it was at, but, hey, it did great on the last quarter mile, so, let's keep it going. And then people are shocked when it blows an engine. It's like, take it off the track, put it into the shop, give it the service that it needs, put it back on the track, and it is going to operate it maybe more optimum than before. And that's what I was watching. And that's what I was trying to foster with Guardian Spirit, was just allowing people to say, hey, I'm not okay right now. And, I don't have any more outside of that for that, but I hope I answered your question, because it's not an easy question.
It's definitely a loaded question. I think you did a great job with breaking it down, just as you mentioned, by your own experiences, right?
Yeah.
I guess that question is very subjective depending on who you ask.
Right.
An example, someone like yourself, You've held many leadership positions in the military, outside of the military as well. You're in the helpful profession now. You're counseling as a clinician. You're doing group work, individual work.
Mm.
I guess it's almost like, and I like to say that being a therapist or being a counselor is a profession that chooses you, right? I don't really believe that we choose the profession. I believe the profession chooses us. So in just hearing that, do you believe that the counseling profession chose you, or do you believe that this was something that you had to become in order for you to really fit that role? Because it seems like you were always a leader. You were always helping people. You were always helping your buddies in combat. You were an instructor, an educator as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost seems like if you tie all these things together, it just fits you being in the helping profession.
It does to a degree, like one of the hard truths I also had to like get to was, why am I so damn helpful? And it's because I hated myself and I needed to be useful. That was the truth of it. So there was a pathology strapped to it. But like I said, when the lights came on and I realized that I believe is when I became more useful as a helper. Because
Yeah.
the wounded healers, I guess it's good to have skin in the game, but if we are not facing ourselves and this could apply not just to the psychotherapy profession itself, but like just about anything else, if we're doing this unconsciously to save ourselves, then it's not about other people at all. It's about us. Like going back to the military, and like one of the things I hit the leaders with, the most damaging statement is perception is reality. That is the most damaging statement because it teaches people to be full of shit. And it's like, perception is not reality. It's not at all. It's perception. It's why they're two different fucking words. But when we hammer that over and over and over again, in intrinsically becoming full of shit, it's like, no, man, I don't have an answer for you on that. Did the profession choose me? Did I choose it? I'm of the mind that my creator put me where I needed to be for now. Don't worry,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
run for office either. Ugh.
Oh, you got my vote. I'll tell you, because your reasons for joining the profession also led me to we're sort of similar in our own destructive patterns, right? You mentioned that you lived a life where you've experienced a lot of hurt, and perhaps this could be one of the reasons why you gravitated towards the helping profession.
Mm-hmm.
And as the famous saying goes, hurt people help people.
Yes.
I want to say that we relate on that aspect because sometimes the person that's been through the most gruesome experiences can really teach us about ourselves and know a thing or two about being stable to the best way that we can be, right? Not to say that counselors are just living a perfect life. I mean, we all have our own troubles. We see our own therapists as well. And
If you're smart.
yeah, yeah,
If you're
yeah,
smart,
yeah,
are you gonna
yeah,
fuck around and find out for sure?
yeah. I don't know. I don't know many who want to choose that path. I mean, back in my younger days, that would be my method of learning, is fuck around and find out. But I just I wanna say we relate in that we both experienced some things that may have pushed us to try to better the lives of others the best way we can. You know,
Yeah.
we just finished our master's program not too long ago, and now we're on our own, right? So just talk to me about that. What's these couple of weeks have been like, other than you studying for your state exam, you working in your practice? Or you could talk to the viewers and just tell, I mean, you don't have to say the name of the practice, but just some of the work that you guys do over there.
Well, I'll speak for me first. Right now, I'm in the middle of researching a product to help people. So I sat through some trainings with the Anxiety Institute about ERP, exposure response, and the subject of VR got brought up, and I went, "Oh, yeah, tell me more." And they've been talking about that. So what do? I go out, I buy an Oculus, and I just mess around. I downloaded some mindfulness apps, and they're freaking amazing, by the way. On top of killing zombies, which is fun, the meditation apps I've been using are incredible. So, I started doing more research, and I came across a company called SciTech. SciTech actually has started putting phobia scenarios in there, PTSD scenarios in there. And I had the pleasure of working and actually talking to the creators and the team. And I've got a demo that I'm still playing around with. And like that to me is like that's why I like the field I came from, because the field I came from is always looking at innovation. Like, how do we make it better using what we got? And what I've discovered with this VR capability is, if COVIDery has taught us anything, is that, some people are still being affected by it. Some people are still agoraphobic, and getting them to level up. This may be an adequate tool to do that. I think it is.